return to school. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Zianda Ngobo in Soweto.
Statistics South Africa's most recent quarterly labor force survey puts the country's youth unemployment rate at 58.1% in the last quarter of 2019, up by 3.4% from the previous year. Now, years after the Soweto uprising, young people are facing yet another crisis.
It's been 44 years since a series of demonstrations and protests led by young people in South Africa began on the morning of 16 June 1976. Years later, the youth of this country are confronted by yet another national crisis, the surge in youth unemployment levels.
When we talk about youth unemployment numbers, quite high is an understatement. Already pre-COVID, in communities like rural communities around the country, if you take a place like Bushbuckridge, it's like 70% female unemployment. If you take national averages, we're well over 55% on youth unemployment. So, and youth is 18 to 35 by our definition. The stats tell us that the average age for a high school graduate to get into a job is age 30. So we've got to start with more national strategies like YES, because more companies will join the movement and create jobs with us if just some of these rules are relaxed a little bit.
The International Labour Organization says young people are the worst affected by the coronavirus pandemic and have been losing jobs at a rapid pace during this time. As a result, Africa's economic growth will remain muted.
You find that young people are 70 to 75% in Africa likely to be in the informal economy, whereas the global average of young people being in the informal economy is much lower. And given the impact of COVID on the informal economy, therefore the disproportionate impact on young people is therefore felt on the African economy.
Youth unemployment was identified as a national priority by President Cyril Ramaphosa during this 2020 State of the Nation address. The Center for Development and Enterprise Executive Director, Bernstein, says the COVID-19 pandemic is sure to have worsened the youth unemployment crisis in the country.
So we are really failing young South Africans, and this is no country for young people in many respects when you look at the numbers. So over 50% of young people were unemployed before COVID. We can only assume the figures are coming out late in June, that things will have got worse, unfortunately. So we must stop talking so much about this nice project and that nice project, which might be great, but only affect a small number of people. If we're going to turn the tide on this political and economic and human challenge for the country, we have to talk about scale. And that is the measure by which we can say whether whatever the president is thinking, is it going to work or isn't it? We need to take some bold reforms in order to make this an economy and a society that is geared for giving young people hope and a future and a job.
Meanwhile, the Youth Employment Service says policymakers and corporates need to act speedily to tackle youth unemployment in this country. Initiatives such as YES is one of the ways, but doing away with some of the red tape is another.
From the policy side, I think that everybody's been saying the same thing. Make data more freely available, create lower cost platforms for youth to be able to work and train on, start to embrace things like micro-credentialing, where you can skill young people up and you don't have to do long courses with credentials through vocational institutions or universities. That there's a whole lot of ways on the policy side on training that we can make a difference, and there's on the side of networks and availability of platforms for young people and the cost of accessing those. So there's such a myriad of things policymakers, but they've got to be faster in the turnaround. They've got to be testing and seeing what works and adjusting this with a much quicker turnaround than we've seen historically. And I think that the situation today demands it.
As the country commemorates Youth Day, it is clear that the youth in this country need extensive interventions